Dummy Switch Pod. We're dangerous. We're dangerous. We're dangerous, and we're back.
We're back.
How are you doing,
How's it
Chris?
going? I'm good. Courts, how are you, man?
No, I'm good. All is well. All is well. All is well,
Yeah.
except for the Lions. You know, the Lions were
Bro.
sick, but we'll get to that later on.
I could say the same about the Sharks, but, we'll get to them. We'll get to them.
Starting it off, Friday night, Pumas versus the Stormers. Let's get straight into this one. Do you want to get into your takes?
Yeah, my takes. Stormers didn't deserve to win. That's off the cuff. They didn't deserve to win. And in true South African fashion, the Pumas got burgled. They got robbed in their own house. And it was a stick up basically. Right at the end there. Pumas did really well tactically. I think they had it right. They got it right, putting the Stormers back in the corners, not playing in their own half. And we saw that with 10 and 15 kicking well out of hand. Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think they left the door open for the Stormers to come to take that game away. But at the same time, I really think there was some suspect officiating. Where what was going against the Pumas wasn't really being called when the Stormers were doing it at the breakdown. So there's some inconsistencies there with the refereeing. But look, it's a tough job, so I don't want to hammer too much about the referees. At the end of the day, the Pumas had the chance to win that game, and they didn't. They left the door open, and they got robbed. That's the long and short of it.
I mean, going into this game, especially in the beginning, they were up early by 3. Eddie Fouchier, 14 out of 14 kicks. I mean, if you want to talk consistency, he's done well throughout. Tactically, as you said, they were using those pinning kicks. Devon Williams pinning them back from 15. Eddie Fouchier, while he was on, pinning them back. And they seem to be targeting Edward Fouchier's side. I think they should have been targeting Zas's side because I think, he's the weaker link of the two. But that is still to be discussed. Early on, unlucky for Williams, kick charged down.
Yeah.
But I mean, they got straight back into the game. Augustus with that, the rip and the floater. Straight to Neil Maritz. I mean, but Neil Maritz, it's 3 weeks, three solo tries. He's really done, he's done good with his time. At the breakdown as well, I feel like they, as you said, tactically, they were putting that pressure, counter-racking penalties. They came through at the one maul even.
Yeah.
Physically, Augustus versus Engelbrecht seemed to be getting the better of him. Even up front with regards to the lineouts, Landsberg had 2 takes. For 2 of their tries. So, I mean, they worked well off set piece. And, I mean, we're talking about those tactics with the kicks and the breakdown. So, I mean, it's indicative of a well-coached team. And there's players playing with that flair. I mean, if you look at the Rudolph try, sorry, the one where he made the break, not the one where he scored, behind
and the switch
pass and the little
switch,
switchy. I mean, it's players expressing themselves, playing with freedom, and it's the coaching that allows that. It's really the coaching that allows that. Those behind the back passes, smooth stuff. Van der Bank, great form.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, he's really looking good right now.
Yeah, and you called it quarters. You've been calling it from the beginning, and I thought, yes, I could see in the first week, you could see he stood out, but as the games have progressed, in the last 2 rounds, he's really, for me, he stood head and shoulders, and I feel like he's in that Pumas backline. He's the X factor player. He's really looking good. He's looking solid, and look, if he remains consistent in what he does, and particularly because he's young, I think you'll most likely, you never know, you'll see some of the bigger unions will come knocking.
I mean, him and Eddie Fouchier both came down from the Lions. I mean, because obviously it's difficult to get game time, especially at 10 for Fouchier. Centers as well is a bit packed by the Lions. But I mean, you can see the quality of the player.
You can see the quality and the potential, and the nice thing is that, they still have time on their side from an age perspective, and I think one of the things that could also be motivating the Pumas players as well is that they know a guy like Faf de Klerk came from the Pumas, went to the Lions, Super Rugby, and he played himself into being a Springbok, and I think from a bigger picture perspective, those guys potentially be looking at that sort of pathway as well to say, look, as long as they're performing consistently at that level, they may get a look in an expanded Pro 14 or Pro 16 tournament and with one of the bigger unions and work their way into contention in a box side over the coming seasons, So I think they have everything to play for as individuals as much as they do as a team, But overall, I was really impressed in terms of their execution. The breakdown, again, I think we called it that the breakdown is going to be key with that. And we did see that. And we saw that in the first half, the ball that the Pumas were able to get and the pack physicality that they brought as well. They really did bring the heat to the Stormers. And again, I still maintain the Stormers were lucky to come away with the win in that game. I think maybe the only questionable thing or question mark on the Pumas would be their bench. Their bench this time around didn't come on and weren't as effective as they were in week 2 against the Griquas, where they just maintained, and took that game away. This time around, they weren't able to do that. But overall, for me, I think Pumas as a team performance, they can be very proud of themselves as a team.
I mean, if going into some of the tries, the one straight off a Landsberg line out, Eddie Fushia, little chip, 3 Pumas waiting for the ball. I mean, it's good coaching and his players executing well. You've got Zaz having a bit of a shocker in that situation. Oh. I don't know. I mean, if I'm being kind, I can sort of say you don't know about the bounce of the ball, but I mean, he's got to do better in that situation. He was totally spinned. Yeah. He was spinned by Van der Bank. Strong run. He made Du Plessis. Murad tackled Du Plessis, and they had a little exchange there. They were a bit tangled. But yeah, I mean, it's just good play. Cronje had a run, went on the outside of Du Plessis. Zas is pulling his hair. I mean, it was embarrassing at that point. It was a bit of an embarrassment at that point. But I mean, as you mentioned with the bench, going into the Pumas bench, Makondwana had, he had a chance to seal it up during the game. And his hands are suspect. You've seen it in like 2 games now. His hands are a bit suspect.
Yeah. Although, look, I think as much as that was an opportunity, I don't think he would have scored because Herschel Yankees was hot on his tail. But it definitely did cost them the momentum, because at that moment, I think the Pumas on the night, the way that they were playing, had he been able to hang on to that ball and the Pumas being able to recycle it, I think they would have cashed in, if not on 3, if not on 5 points or 7 points, on 3 at the least, But look, we can't speculate on what would have been because it doesn't happen. But at the end of the day, it's a missed opportunity by the Pumas. Again, it's a case of they left the door open, and if you do that against a team like the Stormers, where they do have game breakers, where they do have experienced players.
In this case, it was one game breaker, Gelant.
Yeah, it was Gelant, and they will take their opportunities, and that's what happened at the end of the day to the Pumas. Although I was impressed overall from their pack perspective with AJ Leroux, the way that he played as well. Surprised, to be honest, he seemed to be, somewhere in the doldrums or off the radar a little bit. But in this game, he really showed himself, and just the overall pack, how they performed. I think they can really take they really, really be proud of their effort. I think the only other thing is John Rudolph. That is a silly penalty to give away, a yellow card to get as well.
I don't know if I can actually blame him for that, because I want to get into it a bit about Yanchis, but in that situation, he was also holding his jersey and not letting go. So I don't necessarily know if I can blame him. And Yanchis was being a bit chippy earlier on when he scored his try. Kenta Smuts dived on him to try and prevent it, and he threw the ball at him. Given he didn't throw it hard, but you can just see this sort of bit of niggle from Yanchis. This bit of I mean, I don't know what it is. His attitude is off right now.
Yeah, the attitude it doesn't look like it's quite there. And I think as well, that's what happens when you're under pressure. I think they were greatly under pressure and they didn't expect for the Pumas to have put them under so much pressure, and for the Pumas to have clocked up so many points against them, because at the end of the day, yes, as much as they won, we can't ignore the fact that the Pumas were able to clock up so many points against them. And there's really, from a system perspective, they need to take a hard look at themselves. From a pack perspective as well, as much as they have the quality, they're not quite there yet. And I think overall, the Stormers are not fit. The Stormers are not fit at all. Outside of a guy like Steven, well, he wasn't playing, but outside of a guy like Steven Kitsoff, if you're talking from a pack perspective, or JD Schickling, or Nama Klaba, the rest of the team really just looks pretty average, to be honest. Right now, they look like an average side. Jano Augustus had a game to forget, to be honest with you. I really had bigger expectations, more, I expected more from him. I thought this would be the game where he's going to impose himself physically. We're going to see his bollocking runs, but that wasn't the case. He just made too many errors. And yeah, it's really, he set himself back. Herschel Yankees, yes, he got that charge down, but overall, I don't think he managed to sort of bring his pack into the game bring his pack into the game from a breakdown perspective with those balls, from the breakdown of the guys.
He just looks frustrated that he's out of form.
Yeah, that's what it is. I think Damien Willemse can count himself lucky that he didn't play this game, because I think he would have you two would have had a shocker. So he gets a pass this week, or he gets a skip this week. And then I think from the Stormers' perspective in their backline, the only guy that I can say really put his hand up in that game was Dan du Plessis. He's the only one that really looked threatening. He looked like he had more juice in him. Then close to the end, Gelant, of course, because he broke the game, but overall, if you look at them,
Gelant decided they weren't losing that game. There was just a point in that match where he decided he's not losing today.
Yeah, and look, overall, the Stormers do look, they just look average. A guy like Leland Zas, I'm sorry. If they can't keep on playing this guy. All he is, yes, he got to try, but that's all he is. He's just a finisher. He doesn't add. There's nothing else that he brings to the team. I don't see his value in that side, and they're going to have to make tough decisions, Again, also selection. I'd question why a guy like JD Schickling was on the bench, because when he came on, you could see the difference in the Stormers pack. They had more energy. They became a bit more physical, and I feel like that's what sort of started bringing them back into the game. Even a guy like Chad Solomon, when he came on, not saying that he shot up the lights, but he brought that stability. Unfortunately, I don't think Bongi Mbonambi had a game to remember. I think it's one of his
even
games.
If I can just take it back to the try that sort of Van der Bank took him on, and it was really good coaching. And I wish I could have the screen break it down like Ashwin Willemse. But if we go to that, even the guys around the pillar, it goes to fitness to say, okay, maybe these guys were tired, but the guys around the pillar were caught out by a behind the back pass. The reaction time was late. What that did was it left Van der Bank one-on-one with Mbonambi. And on the outside, Jantjes and Edwin van der Merwe rushed the 13. They rushed Cornier. So it left a situation where it's now like center versus hooker, and you took him straight on.
Yeah.
Sunny Bill, try. So these guys are covering themselves in glory with their performances. It's not looking
They're really not. They're really not. And it also comes down, I think it's also the communication factor. My question is, it just looks like these guys haven't gelled. It's like, you can't put your finger on what's going on with the Stormers. You can't say, oh no, because, they lost their captain early or anything like that. No, injuries do happen in a rugby game, but in terms of them as an overall group, I do think they really need to take a hard look at themselves, because they're going to struggle. I don't see them having a real impact in this game unless something drastic happens, for them, and they lift their performance and pick themselves up and really, get to work, because that's what they need to do. They really need to get to work. So, look, overall, for me, the Pumas are unlucky not to win that game. They really were.
Yeah. I hold the same sentiment, but Stormers, they really need to wake up because, I mean, they can count themselves lucky that Kolisi's injury isn't as bad as first was suspected, because to lose their captain on top of all of that would be even worse for the season going forward.
Yeah, but him too. He needs to pull up his socks. You know, I know he's a national captain and he's a captain of the Stormers, but he also needs to pull up his socks and needs to. I read an article the other day say, look, more game time for him will help him improve his performance. That's fine, understand that, but look, they're going to soon run out of time for that. So he needs to really find his straps very quickly. You know, in order to lift the Stormers side. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long season for them.
Moving on to another team having a very long season right now, the Sharks. The
Whoa.
Sharks are visiting the Bulls down in Loftus.
My
Get into this
goodness.
one, I think maybe start with the Bulls.
Look, let's start with the Bulls. And what I must say is the Bulls pack, they fronted up. That's one thing for sure. As expected, Loftus, they brought the physicality. That's one thing that they did. You know, in the beginning, no, they did, eh? They did. They gave it the blue balla, you know. So they really showed their mettle as a pack. They really
strong
dominated.
Carries, yeah, lots of strong carries.
They really dominated that gain line. And for me, if I was the Sharks coach, I'd be very concerned. You know, I think we pointed out the loose forward battle. And we also did point out the lock pairings, you know, and I feel what we saw from the Bulls was, you know, a typical Bulls performance, you know, or what the Bulls traditionally are known for is physically they're going to beat you up front, strong carries, hard work at the breakdown. And when they do get the chance, the ball is going to go wide once they've done that, you know, and that's what we saw, you know, a guy like Ulrich Lowe coming in there. I think he was really good. He was very physical. He was imposing. Marco van Staden as well. His carries were right up there. Dwayne Vermeulen, we already know what we got from Dwayne. You know, perhaps the game against the Cheetahs, you know, he wasn't as match fit as he could have been, you know, and hence he lagged. But in this game, he really showed why he's a Springbok and why he's seen as a leader. Marco, Ron Okia, Jason Jenkins as a lock pairing, they really did well, you know, and they were getting stuck into the Sharks lineup badly, you know, and the Sharks.
And those are some big boys. Those are some big boys. They make Sharks guys look quite light.
They did, you know, and overall, you know, I think one thing the Bulls maybe would be concerned about is their scrum from early on.
Ox was having Van der Merwe early on.
I know he was having oxtail. No, no, he was having oxtail because myself and Merwe, he couldn't hang and he came off, and we saw when Trevor came on, you know, Trevor sorted it out to say, hey, listen here, young man, this is my house, you know, and this is how we do it here. I rule this roost. And
what got me was the look of bemusement when he gets up from the scrum, like it wasn't his fault. You know, he's looking around like it was someone else.
No, it was him. It was really him, myself and Merwe. I think, look, you'd have thought that, you know, having gone overseas, you know, there's always that talk about, you know, when especially front rankers, when they go overseas, you know, the dark arts, they learn more, they come back better scrummages and things like that. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that with myself and Merwe. I haven't seen that with Ron Dreyer as well. So it really does throw a question mark into that belief that the Northern Hemisphere rugby does, as much as they do focus more on the scrum, but whether or not that does benefit those players long term, I don't see that, you know. But again, you can't take away from the Bulls' overall performance. They took their chances, you know. Ivan van Sale, I think he controlled the game very well. Morné Steyn, he wanted to give the Sharks a chance, you know. I think his kicking wasn't, he wasn't doing too good, but at the end he did sort of find his way. Curtly Aaron, so again, the sevens connection is really doing the Bulls well, you know. Cornel Hendrik Steban Gans again showed his class.
I mean, it makes you
How
wonder why they broke up that partnership in the first place. That try, they both had their
yeah,
turn. It was a bit of I go, you go, strong
yeah,
runs.
yeah, exactly.
Kept
And
Tyron Andrews down.
the way Steban Khan stepped Skumbuzo Noche, geez, he buckled the guy. It's just overall, David Creel as well looked very dangerous. Travis Ishmael looks like he didn't really get too many attacking opportunities, but he looked strong, in his carries and defensively as well. And you can see he probably had a stern talking to, and he went away. He worked on whatever he needed to work on. And look, he's come back and he's put in a strong performance, so you can't fault him there. Then just the bench as well from the Bulls side, they just continue that momentum that they built up in the first half. So overall, if this is the sort of balance that the Bulls are going to have with this same team, bar one or two changes with guys like myself and the Maverick coming out to Trevor, just that's his jersey. I don't see why he wasn't starting. Then I think they're finding their way. They're finding their way, and Jake White I think he let out a big sigh of relief when you saw that out of that performance, because had they lost that game, definitely the daggers would have been out for him to say, okay, what is this white guy, what is this Soti doing? Because, it's Afrikaans country there. So, there was going to be those questions. But overall, I think the Bulls were good for their win. They really were. They really were good for their win. Defensively, they're good for their win, in taking the opportunities, set piece. They really cleaned up.
I mean, I don't really have much more to add than, they were the more physical team on the day. And that just seemed to count more.
Up front, that's where it's won, and if we had to talk about the Sharks, in glimpses.
Let's get into the Sharks.
In glimpses, the Sharks did show some sort of potential. And I think early on, they had the opportunity to put the Bulls under pressure, by scoring points, which I think would have put a little bit of doubt in the Bulls' minds. But because they didn't, it just gave the Bulls more belief, more confidence. And boy, did they show it, And then, better look at it. I really, the tight five of the Sharks, they need to really take a hard look at themselves. I think Oxenchair, he did show from time to time in the scrum time, he did his bit in the first half. Dylan Richardson,
Can I just get into that with regards to the tight five? For the Van Zyl little snipe that led to the try, Van Zyl snipes. Ox didn't get to the second pillar. Yes. And he essentially left Buthelezi he left him out to dry. You know, Hiron Andrews is trailing Oxenchair, and it's sort of, I don't know if it's fitness, the lack of awareness, but you've got to sort of let the man know, hey, you're in trouble. Move.
Yeah.
You can't just be on his. It's a team. You can't just be on his shoulder and let him not get there.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a fitness thing as well. I don't think that they as fit as they were earlier on this year. Again, it's a team cohesion thing. It just doesn't look like they're there. I just overall from a Sharks perspective, it was a very poor performance across the board from each and every one of those players. There's nobody there out of that team that I can say, put his hands up to say.
I can say Dylan Richardson, you look at him, flank turned hooker, he did look a bit like Malcolm Marx light in that, he had a couple of steals, even the try, very much like Marx, but lineouts also suspect, very much like Marx.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I say, for me, I disagree. Yes, fine, he did make a couple of steals, he did have some good carries, and for me, overall, his core role, he didn't execute that. The Sharks had absolutely zero ball to work with from a set piece perspective at line-out time. And ultimately, you're not going to win a game of rugby if your set piece is not on point, and that's what happened to them. They lost balls were getting stolen, they were not secure with their own ball. And at the end of the day, they paid the price. And the Bulls definitely made them pay the price. So for me, like I say, for these guys, I'll give the whole team a 3 out of 10, to be honest. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed at all. I'm very disappointed. They're my guys, but look, at the same time, we have to call it as it is. You know, they were very poor.
Yeah, I think they struggled with physicality on the day. Um, when you've got a guy like Van der Mesh on the bench and you're struggling like with physicality, you've got to sort of wonder why he hasn't been included. Um, Connection issues. And we're back again. Some technical difficulties. But as I was saying, you've got JJ Van der Mesh there on the bench, but you're struggling for physicality. It doesn't really make sense.
Mm.
Noche, he's got those runs. He's always going to have those runs during the game, but physicality, I feel, is lacking.
Yeah, look,
I'm trying to get involved, but I mean, no help. Marius Lowe likes to get involved as well, but sort of doing much of nothing.
yeah, and look, with a guy like JJ Van der Mesh, you know, even when he did come on, time that he came on, I had a laugh to myself because you know the Sharks took a tap, they gave the ball to him, he tried to run at the Bulls guys, you know, they brought him down, turnover ball, and it was like, okay, what was that about, you know? And I feel like a guy like that, he should be starting, you know, because he can definitely bring that physicality. It's either, you know, Hiron Andrews, Ruben van Heerden, you know, as a lock pairing, I think if your lock pairing isn't dominant, if you don't have at least one of your locks, you know, imposing themselves on a game, then your whole pack is going to struggle, and that's what we saw. You know, Hiron Andrews looked flustered at line-out time because the balls are just getting to the balls because he looks like he's the one that does all the calls, and they're reading him. You know, and he didn't have an alternative. He didn't know what to fall back on, and for me, I think it's time now that we start seeing, from a Sharks perspective, that we start seeing some changes, you know, some fresh personnel. Uh, Overall, just that pack that pack needs to be reworked. You know, Skumuzo Noche. At the end
They're
of the
very
day,
lightweight.
he's from a physical perspective. Look, I don't think he was there physically. You know, it's just look, he's struggling, and like I said it last week. You know that he needs to bring the physical edge, and he didn't. You know, and I don't think that whole Sharks pack outside of the first 10 minutes, you know, they just fell off. You know, they just couldn't handle the Bulls, and and the scoreline reflected it at the end of the day. The scoreline did reflect that, and it was poor. You mentioned did try, but at the end of the day, you know, with poor ball, poor decision making, these guys they were poor. That was a performance to forget from the Sharks. Really, 3 out of 10, I think, is even being kind. I think 3 is because they wrote their name on the paper. You know, so
Now
that's
I
the
want to
only
ask
reason.
you a question. I want to ask you a
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah.
Bosch, we come to you and we say, we'll give you Gianni Lombard for Bosch.
I'll take Gianni Lombard. I'll
You
take
take
him.
the offer.
I'll take him. I'm sorry to say it, but I'll take him. Bosch hasn't shown me even. You know, they say you see the character of your team when you're losing. That's when you find out who is who in your squad. And for me, he's not there. Perhaps as a schoolboy, you know, coming up, he had all the raps, but at the senior level, he just hasn't made that step up. He just hasn't found himself. He hasn't found he's not comfortable in his own skin as well, you know. And again, part of that you can attribute that to a poor pack performance. His pack hasn't been giving him good ball, giving him the platform, you know. But at the same time, a guy like Sanele Nohamba, even though the pack hasn't been doing too well, he's still showing his glimpses where you can say, well, look, even in a losing cause, this guy's still got that fight in him, that dog in him, you know. Yeah, I'd take Gianni Lombard. I'd take him today, even. You know, I'll make the call. Make the call to the Lions and say, listen, you know, let's make a trade. You know, it would be interesting if rugby was like that. You know, if we had
Yeah.
those options to make those in season trades. You know, because we desperately need a 10 that is going to be stable. That's number one. And number two, that's going to be really sort of imposing from a game plan perspective in executing what needs to be done, And right now, the Sharks, who do we have as the backup 10? We don't really have anybody as a backup 10 outside of a 9 that could potentially play 10, and that's not good enough for me. It's really, we're going to struggle if we don't sort out our issues and quickly. That's my view on the Sharks. And, I think we're going to go into the takes for the coming weekend. But
yeah,
the Sharks,
get into that.
They need they need a prayer. They really do need something, to spark them again. Because earlier in the season there was talk of before COVID, there's a special team, etc., etc., and they did look special. Let's not lie. Let's not take that away from them. They did look special. They were the best South African.
I wasn't a belief.
For me, they were the best South African team in Super Rugby, which they were, and they were top of the log at that time. Fine, it was cut short. But the thing is, if that culture in the team was there then, where's it gone now? That's the question that I have. And, we have to look at everybody, coach and the players. They need to take a hard look at themselves and really decide what it is that they want to do this for the rest of the season. Otherwise, just like the Stormers, they will struggle. It pains me to say that, but they will struggle, if they don't get their house in order.
Okay, moving on to this weekend's games. Friday, we've got the Lions versus the Griquas. This is the only team that have put out their team sheets right now. Mm-hmm. Lions at home, they've been looking good the past few weeks. Just, one or two errors leading them not to win the games. I feel, they've got a good loose trio playing right now. Yanchi is back at 10, Lombard at 15. Osan is back. Stian Pienaar has taken over from Ulengo on the wing, which I feel is an upgrade. I rate him more personally. I'm not much of an Ulengo man. Griquas, 8 players left this week. Many changes to the starting lineup. Gekete has gone to Cheetahs, Fulmink, Sharks, and Kasende is out. So I don't have much faith on this one. I'm going Lions by 20.
Yeah, look, I think Lions will be chomping at the bit because they didn't play last weekend. COVID robbing them of match day. But overall, I think they're looking very, again, as you mentioned, they were their own worst enemies in the games that they lost, because they had opportunities that didn't take them. But I think they would have taken this time to really address that, and against a Griquas team that's really, it's going to be struggling from a personnel perspective, and with those changes, it's going to take them some time again to resettle into the way that they want to play. So yeah, I can absolutely agree with you when you say the Lions by 20. I think maybe the Griquas as well, because the new guys will also want to prove themselves, that if the guys that are giving a shot now, I'd say maybe by like 15, the Lions will take it. It won't be a close game, but the Griquas will, I believe, will put up a performance, will at least, show themselves, and would want to also redeem themselves after their poor showing against the Pumas in their last game. So, you're only as good as your last game, and they were poor. So, look, I can agree with you. Lions will take it, but I don't think by as much, to be honest.
Happy for Sikekete. I didn't call. I sort of asked why bigger unions wouldn't have been after him. Happy for Fulmink as well. Fulmink keeps a job. He keeps a job. He's never out of work. It doesn't matter where he's working, but he's always working. He keeps a job.
No, he's always employed, that guy. But, Skegete, you did call it. You did say, you're wondering if it was a matter of time before the bigger unions came knocking. And they did, and they did. So, big ups to him. Look, I think the Cheetahs are going for it. They're going for it in ensuring that they're bolstering the squad with guys that can, particularly from a bench perspective, come in and really continue with the sort of momentum that the starters will put up. The Cheetahs are looking to win this tournament and make a big statement.
No Manjezi, no problem. It's fine.
Yeah, you understand. So you know, it's I'm glad for him. You know, I'm really glad for him. Hopefully, he can just take that and take his play to another level where he becomes a real factor. You know, of course, we're already stocked up in the locking cabinet. You know, but it's a chance for him really to really show himself with the big boys at a bigger union. You know, at the end of the day. But interesting game coming up with them. But yeah, Lions will take it for sure.
Moving on, Pumas versus the Sharks. And the Sharks, I'm warning you. Watch out.
Oh, look, I can agree with that warning. I heed that warning. I myself, as a Sharks fan, I'm not too confident this weekend, to be honest. I'm not. Because based on what the Pumas put out, and the Pumas are at home, Pumas will take a lot of pride from their performance last week, take a lot of momentum as well from their performance against the Stormers. And they're looking at a Shark side that's not all together. So it's a chance for the Pumas to really take a big scalp in this tournament. I don't see. Look, the Sharks. I mean, once the team sheets come out, we'll see. But they need to have a reaction. You know, at the end of the day, they need to have a reaction. They need to show who they are. You know, with all the quality players that they have, their big union, they need to have a reaction. And if they don't react and respond to the pressure that they're under, the Pumas will cut them apart and will take that game. Although, if the Pumas look to go play with ball in hand too early and not try and physically dominate the Sharks, that may just play into the Sharks' hands and give the Sharks an opportunity to score some points, get their confidence up, and then perhaps the Sharks will win. But if the Pumas continue their blueprint physically up front, match, set the tone, then yeah, Pumas I'd say by 5. I'd say it's hard to say, but based on by 5 Pumas, I'm saying
I've got Sharks by 10. I think somehow they'll rally together, pull themselves together and get it going. It's going to be interesting to see Van der Bank, versus the Sharks midfield, if he'll cut them up as well.
Well, whoever's going to be the 12 of the Sharks, whether it's going to be Maurice Lowe or Jeremy Ward, is going to have a very, very, very tough job on his hands, against Van der Bank because he's on form. But as a unit, the Pumas, if it is going to be consistency in selection, they'd be more settled. And the reason why I'm also going with the Pumas to go take it by 5 is because I think Superfan Saturday, the writing was actually on the wall with the Sharks. We were just in denial, or I was in denial to say, oh, well, it was just a hit out. But yeah, they're not convincing at all, to be honest.
We'll see how it goes. Some good matchups. Even Hiron Andrews coming off a poor performance. I want to see what Landsberg does to him. Yep. But let's move on to last game, Bulls versus Stormers. Bulls, I think Bulls are going to win this one by 15. They're just going to be more physically dominant, I feel. Stormers not looking great at the moment. I've got Bulls by 15.
Yeah. Stormers, again, they're poor last week. So, the Bulls would have taken a lot of confidence. If Jake White keeps consistency in selection and say that these are the guys that he's going for, which I think he will, then yeah, Bulls by 15. Because Stormers, again, no imagination. The firepower's gone. I don't know where the juice is. These guys, they're not there. They don't have that energy. They're out of puff, and at Loftus, again, if you're not going to front up physically against a Bulls pack that's motivated, then they're going to struggle. Herschel Yankees is going to be up against the guy like Ivan Van Zyl or even Embrus Papiri, who have been having sessions with the legendary Farid Dupria, so of course he's giving them insights in terms of how to manage games and things like that. So those guys are definitely going to be looking to implement what they're learning, which is going to make them even more dangerous. So, it's going to be an interesting game, Stormers against the Bulls. But yeah, Bulls will have too much for them physically. I don't see the Stormers really doing much of more than what they've been doing now. Yeah, they must go back home. They need to go revisit themselves and see what it is that they need to do. Or, they need, or maybe they need to go consult. I don't know. Sia must go back to Sweden and find out what's going on here with his team.
They need something. Go to the river, kill a goat, something, guys.
Yeah, they need to slaughter, especially Jano Augustus. Oh my goodness, because it was first he was injured, then he came back. Now his poor performances. No, he must go to the river. He needs to cleanse himself of that bad form. All of them. They need to cleanse themselves of that bad form. But we'll
Or
see.
maybe cleanse
Interesting.
themselves of their coach. I don't know which one. But anyway, for another, that's a discussion for another day.
Look, it's a discussion for another for another episode. But I just want to say, I, I'm seeing a trend here with the Stormers where I'm starting to think more that it's not so much the coach, but rather the players that are just, there's a disconnect somewhere, or it's maybe the coach's support staff because, yeah, there's something that's not right there. But I'll leave it there.
And that's where we'll leave it for this episode. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, share, subscribe,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. Unfiltered Rugby Opinions, Dummy Switch Pod. You know how it goes.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends to tell a friend. And that's it
You know
for
what I
us.
mean. Thank you,
Cheers.
Coders. Cheers,
Yes.
cheers.